what's up? How's it going? This is Easy Drawings. Today we're going to go over how to draw an animated eye. I'll move my camera a little bit. So, I am going to go over what a normal eye looks like, and I'm going to go over kind of how to animate that eye. I'm going to use one eye to make it easy, and then if you really like this video, click that like button, and I could make, more about the animated looking things, how to take things and animate them. So, let's go over a regular eye really fast. So pay attention. Watch the whole video if you can, and if you do like the subject, like I said, click that like button so I know what to add more of. A regular eye would be if you were to simplify it down to its kind of angular form, it would have this shape, assuming the nose is on this side. Let's say the nose is over there. So a regular eye would have a peak, go down to the edge. You have the ball inside of it. Pull back, and you have a little peak at the bottom right side here, and it pulls up. You have the iris, which is the colored portion of it, and the pupil. How big is the pupil, which is the black part? How big is the pupil compared to the iris? So the idea is that you should be able to get 3 pupils across inside the iris. Does that make sense? So if you have the iris over here, let's take the iris separately. You should be able to fit 3 pupils across. So that's it's basically 1/3. Fancy way of saying 1/3. And over that you have the lid. The lid is, imagine like, I don't know, like an opening in a tin can or something like that, and you're pushing it up. You have the lid, and you have the lower lid as well. We have certain things to distinguish between guy and girl. You can kind of darken the upper lid, because usually what's happening is the light source is coming from above, and it'll create this small kind of, hanging over a shadow from the eyelid down to the eyeball, or you can call it sclera. So let's review that one more time, and then I'm going to go on to how to kind of animate that. So the eyeball, the eye. I start usually with an eyelid first. There's a peak right here on the inner upper edge. I pull down right here because the ball of the eye is shoved into the eye socket. You have a little ball there. I forget what that little ball is called. There's a tear duct, I believe. It's gonna pull back down here, lower lid, and it's gonna have a slight peak down here. I know it looks like a teardrop, right? And then above that, you're gonna have the eyelid. And that eyelid kind of folds on itself, so I throw another line there. And then you have the lower lid. These are different for everybody. So it's kind of who the person is. Some people have hardly any eyelid at all. Some people have a really large eyelid, like droopy eyes. And then, like I said, draw the iris. How big is the iris now compared to the sclera, compared to the entire eyeball? So if you have the entire eyeball, right? Imagine the eyelid is right here and it's opened up. The lid itself opened up. How big is the iris, the coloring, the whole ball? Well, it's about the same as the other one. It's about 1/3 across. It's about 1/3. Same thing as compared to the pupil. Same thing compared to the pupil and the iris. So you can fit about 3 pupils in an iris, and you can fit about 3 irises across the eyeball. Generally, right? Generally. But those are the rules of drawing an eye. So how do you animate this? So let's go back to a normal eye again one more time. You have that peak right here. Tear duct area, right? You have the eyeball shoved in there. Pulling in. eyeball. I'm gonna put a highlight there at the edge, right next to the pupil. Eyelid, lower eyelid, right? And then it's gonna pull in. How would you animate that? So what I've seen the most, especially from anime or any Disney cartoon, they tend to make the eye larger, much larger than it is. So you're pulling these same parts, but pulling their proportions. So I would pull exactly the same thing, except I'd pull the eyelid way higher. That peak is a little more curved and round. You have the same kind of tear duct area as well. And then you're pulling down here, and it's a little bit flatter, I've noticed. There's not as much of a peak at the bottom. And then the actual iris is huge normally. Let's draw the eyelid as well. The eyelid is in proportion to that, so it is wrapping around. And I would say this obviously varies per style, right? Per style. Anime is different from Disney cartoon, is different from whatever animated show. They will change this up. I'm just saying in general what I've seen in animations, they tend to make the eye larger and more tombstone shaped, you know? Like you have this big arc at the top, and it's a little bit flatter toward the bottom. Where you have that eye, look at this eye right here. If you were to make it a polygon, it'd be more of a kind of a diamond. Right here, this is more of a, you know, more of a tombstone shape. And you can throw tons of highlights, as many as you want. I know you've seen that. You can make them square highlights, or you can make them round. It's really up to you. Or you can make the highlight huge, which I've seen as well. And you can also put in, you know how there are threads of the iris, where you see the iris, you see those little cords, you can kind of put those in as well. It makes it look a lot more animated, animation. And throw in a little bit of the cheek, pushing into the cheek there. And if you really want, if you want to make it like maybe more feminine, throw huge eyelashes on it. I know I was hearing in real life that men have, I think in average, right? Men have like larger eyelashes than women, like when you're not, but women obviously put eyelashes on, fake eyelashes, and or mess with theirs to make them look bigger. But I think I heard right naturally that guys have bigger eyelashes. It's pretty funny. It's not fair. I know I do. I have like pretty big eyelashes for guys. And then at the bottom as well, but not as much, not as harsh. So I hope that made sense to you. That was just a very quick primer. That's a very beginner way to how to animate an eye. And hopefully you learned a lot. If you did, if you want more of these, if you want more animation style, you know, like take something real and then we animate it, I can do that for you. But you got to tell me in the comments so I know what to put more of on this channel. Thank you so much, guys. One last thing. If you're after, what's it called? If you would like a free ebook, there's a free How to Draw a Skull ebook. And it's a skull is kind of the basis of every portraiture, even in animation, by the way. When you draw an animated head, a skull is kind of necessary. You have to know the anatomy of the skull to really draw a portrait. At least to draw a portrait well, you have to know that skull. Because if you look at your brow, if you look at the brow and everything else, you look at like the nose, even kind of like the bump of the nose, right? That's the skeleton, like coming forward. So you have to know the skull. The skull's huge. You have to know that for anything, any kind of animation, you know it. There's a free ebook on my Patreon when you join it. If you join it for literally $2, I will give you that ebook and a whole bunch of other stuff. But go check that out. I'm gonna put the description below. It's free for now. That ebook is free right now. I think it's about 8 or 9 pages, and it's meant for total beginners to learn the skull. And I put in the most common mistakes people make when they start drawing the skull, because it's such a common thing. But thank you so much for the people who've been responding greatly to that. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for everyone who's gotten that already. I'm going to put that in the description. Go check that out on my Patreon. I'm going to put that link. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Comment to me, even if it's just hi, and I'll see you later.